Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Real Stories of Success podcast. I'm sitting here with my good buddy Austin Lahr. I am Ryan Herget. Austin, it's been a day or two since we've sat down and done a podcast. What's a good word in your world, man?
It has been, man. I'll tell you, obviously people will be listening to this a little bit later than how we are talking right now, a couple weeks, but maybe a week. But, things are in the mortgage world, in the lending world, are getting a little bit easier again. And so, we went through that rough time of things shrinking, that box shrinking on who can qualify, and that box is getting back to normal again. And we love that. I can tell you, it makes our lives quite a bit easier. So, but how about on the real estate side? What are things going on over there?
Really, I'm kind of excited because we're now almost a couple months in since the world changed completely. And one of the things that I think has remained so true is that doing the work, showing up, answering the phone, being on time, and all those basic things is just amplified right now because there's a lot of people who are not doing that. They're not showing up on time. They're not doing all the small things. And Austin, I cannot reiterate this enough. Everybody that I know that is doing those things is busy as they can possibly be right now, at least here in Central Indiana, our market. Every single day, there's twice as many homes selling as there's homes coming on the market. And so inventory is continuing to get eat up. We're literally at an all-time low with inventory. And we just sold 2 homes last week, and we had 9 offers on one and 11 offers on another. So things have not slowed down even a little bit. So super excited about that.
Back, huh?
It is. I am thankful, and we're just going to keep our nose to the grindstone and keep doing what we always do, right?
So. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited. This is going to be interesting for our audience. Every once in a while we like to kind of flip it around and maybe have somebody that isn't necessarily, in the industry, but can help our industry. So Ryan, who do we have today?
So I am really, really excited for today. So in studio, we've got Mr. Chris Wheeler. Chris Wheeler has become a very, very good friend of mine, over probably the last 3 years, Chris, and is really kind of one of my secret weapons in my business. In business, in Austin, this, that, anytime you start something new, you do something a little bit different, you can always benefit from having a coach, somebody that's been there, done that before, right? And we talk about that all the time on the show. And that's one of the things that Chris has really, really helped me with my business as I kind of transitioned out of what I was doing and how I was doing real estate before to really being more about how do I help people and build deeper relationships with my customers and be able to serve them at a higher level and specifically do that within a niche that I love to do, which for me is, motorsports, racing, dirt track racing specifically. But Chris has really shown me so many different ways that you can market yourself and how to use digital marketing to put yourself in front of a new audience and really build value. So I kind of wanted to share that because sometimes you can really draw some really good, business ideas and really good parallels from other industries. And that's kind of what I wanted to share because he's going to have some really cool insights that, while his applies to the motorsports industry, is going to be universal across all sales platforms. And I think that that's something that a lot of our, listeners can certainly benefit from. So Chris, welcome, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks guys for having me here. It's good to be out of the house. Ryan, he said, "Do you want to be in the studio?" I said, "Absolutely." I haven't woke up
this early here, man.
Thank you, man. I haven't woke up this early since March 12th.
That's all right. So for those listening right now or watching on YouTube, we are we're at the bright early morning hour of 8 a.m. And so yes, Chris, we certainly appreciate it. Man, I definitely meant everything I said. I'm super excited to really pull some of the stories from you because you've done such an amazing job. And if you don't mind kind of sharing with our audience, kind of what's your story? I mean, you've been in the motorsports industry for a long, long time, but you've really done something special in that industry that I'm excited to share with our audience and how you specifically built your brand and the business you're working with right now.
I mean, it goes back to a place called Long Beach, California.
It's a good place.
I grew up with my dad racing, and then about early 90s, he got into doing graphics, and this is kind of where I started to learn. He had a business partner that they had a falling out with, and his accountant said, "Hey, you're making stickers for off-road cars, but I own an IndyCar team, and an IndyCar they'll give you $4 for the same sticker that you can only sell for $1 in the off-road market." So my dad, thinking ahead, said, "Well, I need to be in front of him. How do I do it?" He said, "Come by the shop." So my dad, coming from a roofing family right there in Southern California, had a CDL the day he could get one. He jumped in as the new truck driver and fueler for the IndyCar team. But the rule that he put in place, or the deal he put in place, was that he got to take his graphic stuff on the road. And what happened after that is we ended up fast forwarding now, next 22 years, he and my mom, they were mainly the first decal company on the scene.
That's awesome.
One of the first ones to wrap a transporter, first ones to wrap an IndyCar, first ones to wrap pit equipment. And then they got out because the market got so saturated, right? It got to a point to where everybody who didn't want to apply themselves in college but were creative, they decided they wanted to learn how to make stickers. And that's because the creative side of education wasn't supported yet. And then you open it up to a place financially where anybody could get approved for a $30,000 decal printer, and everybody had decal machines.
It changed the business, yeah.
And so they got out. Like, they sold when their value was high enough, and now they're, they have a property down in Florida, and they just kind of hang out. My dad still works, up here in Indy part-time for Bell Helmets, but that's where it started. That's where the learning started. So moving here to Indiana, and I kind of started backwards, right? So most people you meet, they get into racing with go-karts or dirt bikes or something at a very grassroots level. Well, I grew up in the IndyCar paddock. And then it took me more years, to kind of go the other way down that learning curve, to get back to the dirt track side of things. But I honestly, I think a lot of the learning how to just work on the value of things was when I decided to go karting. And my dad said, cool, like, here's your race budget, and it's barely enough to get your equipment, and you need to figure out the rest. So, when you're 12 years old and you've got to go stand in front of somebody and say, hey, Mr. Tom, you've got money, and I'm racing. What can I do to make you want to sponsor me? Because I never approached it with, here's why you need to sponsor me. It was always, what can I do? And I'm just a kid. I didn't know any better. And that teaches you a lot, right then. And it's just whether or not, you decide to retain that or not, and then keep kind of reinventing your vision on it. And that's where it started.
So there's a couple things that you said there that I absolutely love. And that's, when your dad, took this opportunity, to do that, he found, he built this side hustle niche that became a business by immersing himself within an industry. And again, that could be any industry. We're talking racing here, but it could be any industry. It could be pets. It could be anything. And, he built this entire business by supporting and building value for the people that he was just hanging around all of the time, and then forced you to do the exact same thing. That's awesome.
And it's one of those things, too, where I think a lot of their financial success on that came from some stuff that we've seen a lot of in the last 90 days. Yeah. He never went and got a shop. He never went brick and mortar. Instead, he built a bigger home, a custom home here in Indianapolis that had a big enough basement that he could have it, and he could have his enjoyment side of his basement, about 1,200 square foot of it, with another 600 square feet of office space.
Yeah. And
never once had to go out and spend money and on overhead.
Smart. That's right? Smart. That's running a business the right way.
The backside of it was the customer service, right? Which the key to the customer service, at least from everything I've dealt with, is having that relationship where if I'm working with you on a project and you have an idea at 10 o'clock at night, I want you to text me. Back then we didn't text necessarily, we faxed, but whatever. I want you to tell me about it, because if I'm awake, I'm going to work on it right then anyway. Right? Today's world, I don't work 9 to 5. Some days I work 4 a.m. to noon. Right. Some days I work noon to 4 a.m. But some days I work noon to 1.
Right. Well, something you said there, not to interrupt, but you said something, and Austin, you shared this with me, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, but, the speed of response, being available when your customer is available, I think is one of the things that's fundamentally changed throughout all of business, and waiting until the next morning to get back to somebody just doesn't work anymore at all.
Yeah. Chris, two things you said there that I personally really love is not why should they sponsor you, but what you're going to do to have them want to sponsor you, right? Like, don't go at it with I'm the best. What can I do for you type of thing? And like you said, most industries aren't 9 to 5, right? And the people that only want to work 9 to 5 are not going to succeed. And people that are willing to take that phone call at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, are the ones that will succeed in any industry. So, one thing I wanted to dive into, what I think is going to be really, really important for our client, our audience to hear is, let's talk about you leveraging your network, right? So you've done a lot of different roles in this industry and met a lot of people, and that works against any industry. How are you taking those relationships and then turning it into what you do today?
I think a lot of it starts with your principles, right? And your kind of your own moral code or compass. First off, you take every meeting, right? And that's how it all begins. Like, you take every single meeting. It doesn't matter what you've heard about the person or the company. It doesn't matter sometimes it doesn't even matter about your past experiences, right? Because I know that I screwed a lot of stuff up when I was younger.
We all have.
Right? And we've all made these massive mistakes, and we are all hopeful that we're different now. So we can't make that decision based that, oh, well, that guy screwed me once or screwed up something once, I'm never going to talk to him again. People change, right? Including ourselves. So you take every single meeting, you treat every single person that you meet with respect, and you don't lie to them, right? So that is your foundation of how you start to leverage these kind of relationships over time. And
Is
then,
that why you're on the podcast? Because you take every meeting?
no, actually, I don't know how successful Saturday night was for everybody, but I can tell you that I laid in the fetal position all day Sunday, and I think some point Saturday night I told Ryan, yeah, man, I'm down. Pick me up in the morning because I don't like to drive. That's my biggest thing in life. I don't like to drive anywhere. And so I was like, hey, dude, if you pick me up, I'm all in. And he texted me yesterday. He's like, hey, you still down? And I'm like, apparently those Jello shots on Saturday, I had an idea I was going to be on a podcast.
No, it was fun, but we were actually talking, and there was a few Jello shots involved, but nothing wrong with the beverage from time to time. But one of the things that we were talking about that again I thought was going to be so important to share is understanding how does somebody actually do this? How do you go in? Because I kind of wanted to this does definitely it doesn't have to be about me, but I can only reiterate so much how much immersing yourself in something you said was pivotal over time, you can really start to build relationships. It wasn't like I went to, I first met you at a Bell Helmet grand opening when you were there. And, I think it was probably 6 months before I really had the opportunity to start helping people, but it was by showing up every single day and time again.
Right. So the biggest mistake people make is when they step into something new is they think is when they think that they've got it figured out from the beginning.
Yeah. Right.
And when people like I tell people all the time, be aware of your surroundings and be willing to know what you don't know and be okay with not knowing, because you need to get in and then you need to kind of watch it, right? You need to learn who the people are. I've made mistakes and I've seen people make mistakes. They get into something, they get into some new craze or something where there's a ton of opportunity. It's a target rich environment for them, for their skill set. But they go through door number 1 and they're so excited they just stay there. Mm-hmm. They don't take the time to go through door number 2, door number 3, and so on and so forth. So, like you said, it takes a little bit of time, but then you start to realize who the key players are. And then you just got to know how to study people and you got to know how to make sense of it. The biggest part of kind of like the B2B and the leveraging relationships and putting people together and making it profitable and successful is to go into it and break it down backwards. A lot of people go into these things thinking, what can I do for me? And those don't work.
So I'm going to pause you right there because I want to give a practical example to what you just said. Okay, and this is on one scale relatively small, but on the other scale it's turned into something huge. We mentioned an example a little while ago that's ultimately turned into me helping 7 people sell homes since it happened for making a very nominal investment. But let's tell people the story about how you put together the indoor karting thing. And for people that may not be familiar, go to Facebook and check out Tuesday Night Thunder. And we put this Chris put this karting thing together, but what was so instrumental about it is he knew that I was interested in the racing industry. He has several other friends that own like HVAC businesses and other affiliate businesses that could also help one another. So it wasn't more about just saying, hey, who can give me money for this, but who would be the right people to put together, so that way it creates lasting long-term relationships that are going to benefit everybody. So would you mind kind of telling people about that and how you did that? Because dude, it's been huge for me and my business, and I know other people can benefit from such things.
I mean, that was an idea, and that's something I'll tell everybody. Just like when you have an idea and you follow your gut, don't be scared of it, right? Like just you can't lift.
Yeah.
Take a chance. I'm not saying go spend your life savings on a blank thought, but look into it. And we sat there in Speedway, Indiana one day and had lunch, and Speedway Indoor Karting that week had decided to there it is. That's awesome. They had decided to build a slick track in their existing facility just to try it out. The day before, we went over at lunch. We tried it out. 13 days later, we had sold out all 40 entries. We had sold every sponsor. We had done things that I didn't think were possible in 13 days to host our first event. It was a massive success, but it was about bringing all of you guys together. And having a place. It's the forward thinking of, okay, all of our sponsors are spending money. Let's give them this designated area inside for them just to be able to put their personal belongings. Let's force them to spend time together. And like I said, you obviously you got to meet up with Jerry and those guys, and they do all the HVAC. That's led to you bringing them in on projects for clients. They've had people that needed homes that they've called you for.
Yeah.
It was bigger than that even because, there's a couple other businesses that came through the doors that have now done big contracts with SIK, the facility that we ran at. But all that was literally taking people that I trusted, that I'd worked with in the past, and I made 8 phone calls. I made 8 phone calls and sold all 8 sponsorships for the presenting. I made a 9th phone call and sold the title. Made a 10th phone call and made up a new sponsor.
Yeah.
Right, and that was it.
Yeah, like winning hot laps. Like you had so many sponsors that you had to create an award for winning hot laps. And for those that aren't in the racing industry, hot laps is winning practice. So.
Yeah, and everybody says, there's nobody that wins practice. Well, TNT, we do.
We did. But that's what was fun about it. So let's kind of take that another step deeper. How can somebody else, because you just kind of laid a lot out there right now, but it's about leveraging those relationships that you've had long term by doing all of the things the right way, being, operating with absolute integrity and just making sure that everybody's, is going to receive value, that you're not just taking value, for anything. So how does somebody get started doing something like that? Let's say maybe they want to put it on an event and they want to reach out to maybe a mortgage company and a title company. How do they find the right partners that are going to benefit from that? Like, what's the reverse engineer process that you mentioned?
Well, I think, and I don't even know the phrase for it. It takes somebody that's not scared to pick up a phone, right? That's the first thing. And stop texting people to get money to sponsor something. Call somebody. I understand texting is really convenient and it's nice and it's cool, but like pick up a phone call.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to send an email, have somebody proofread it. It's truly, it's the simplest of things, right? I've met, when I was with Bell Helmets, I met some of the kids that are some very talented individuals. The downside is their parents wanted their kid to have this self freedom to send their emails on their own. Well, he's 9 years old. He doesn't know punctuation. Right. Well, on my side, I need to make sure that we're represented the best possible way. So I'm not going to sponsor the kid who says, I like cars, give me a helmet, please.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. But first off, you call the people, and you need to find out, like I said earlier on, what do they need? What are they looking for? What is your key demographic? Sorry, right? Find out. Do your research. The internet is an amazing place. You can find almost anything out about anybody or anything. Yeah. All it takes is time and effort. Do your homework. That's the one thing from school that in today's world, for any of you that are younger kids that are listening to your parents' computer right now, the things that look, there's equations I'll never use again for sure. But the work ethic and doing your homework is going to be the biggest key of the rest of your life, right? Yeah. And so do your homework on these things and find out what people need. Say you want to put on a 5K and you need sponsors. That's great. Who are your runners? Are you working with an existing running group? Give me some stats. Give me some demographics. And having those statistics are great. Statistics, though, can also be kind of harmful if you don't understand how they operate. Right? Yeah. I can tell anybody that we had 2.2 million minutes of viewed screen time in the last month. But if I can't explain to them how or why, and I'm trying to pitch them on something, then it's completely useless. Right. Because at some point you will meet somebody who is smarter or somebody who's been through more of it, and they're going to say, cool, so was that on live or was that on replay? And if you don't know your numbers and you don't know your breakdown, you could be in big trouble now. Now you just lost your deal.
Your credibility just went out the window.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so it's honestly, it's do your homework, and then start calling upon these people. And in fact, a lot of people probably disagree with me, which is fine. But usually, to get a good relationship with a brand or a company, I throw them a deal to begin with, right? And it's like, hey man, I've been upfront with people. Hey man, look, I really want to work with you guys. You guys we haven't worked together yet. I want to give you an opportunity to get in here. This thing's 50% off from what it normally would be. But it's going to give you an opportunity to see how we operate. It's going to help me reach the goal of getting this project done. And let's go from here. If it works out for you, that's great. It's a big win. If not, at least you didn't lose it all like you did last time with somebody else who didn't give you a deal. Right. And it's just about balance and approach and being able to read people and thinking on your feet.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
I love the story about just having the idea and going for it, right? I think that's a lot of people get scared. It's kind of, honestly, it's kind of how we did this podcast, right?
Absolutely.
You know, Ryan and I sat down and we were like, hey, I want to do a podcast. I want to do a podcast. And we went and ran for it. So yeah, I did want to dive into a little bit too, Chris, about your brand. So, you know, a lot of people in our industry are building a brand around themselves. You've done the same thing in your industry. What are maybe some advice that you would give to people? Is there a system you're using? Is it just you know, ideas come to you? What's that look like on your side?
Man, to build your own brand, it's just be smart. Like it's honest. Like you don't even have to do anything crazy anymore. You don't have to do backflips off your house and get views on YouTube. You know, you don't have to do like you in today's climate of life, man. You can't be stupid. Like, and I don't even know if this is allowed, but I have my top tweet I've ever had, which probably isn't all that big. It's pinned. It's really simple. It's hashtag don't be a dick. Like if you can manage to do that and treat people with respect, do the right thing, and always put yourself out there and support people. For example, you know, last year when I was still running the motorsports side of Bell Helmets, we went to go to the Knoxville Nationals. The Capitani Classic was out. Mm-hmm. Like Capitani Classic probably wasn't going to happen, which is the Sunday event going into the 410 Nationals. I worked really closely with Kendra Jacobs and the entire Knoxville staff. You know, I definitely went over budget from what I was told at the beginning of the year, but it was one of these opportunity things, right? Where it's like, I'm taking the last night of on track before the biggest race of the year, and we're going to make it the Bell Helmets Capitani Classic. Mm-hmm. And it was a major success. It was an untrackable success, right? Meaning, yeah, I can look and see how many people visited the website with this discount code, or I can track all these things. But the true value came on things that you can't track. And I'm walking down the pits, and I have a guy who wears Simpson products head to toe, and he stopped me just to say thank you for what you guys do for our sport and safety. He doesn't even wear our products. Never met the guy. Couldn't even tell you his name today. But when guys like that stop you for that stuff, that knows you're doing it right. And I didn't do it because I wanted everybody to wear a Bell Helmets hat on the staff that night. It looked great. Kendra did a great job of that. The billboard in 3 and 4 came out really nice. But I did the whole thing because it was the right thing to do and the sport needed it. Mm-hmm. And if you do things for the right reason and you treat people with respect, the brand almost builds itself. Yeah. A former coworker of mine posted something the other day. I saw it on a story, and it's not about the whole thing isn't about what everybody sees, right? It's about the after hours, right? We always talk about third shift is where we make our living, mm-hmm. right? Like morning shift, yeah, that's cool, but who has time for that? Second shift, get some work done, but all the magic truly happens in the third shift, and it's working on yourself in the background. It's coming up with the ideas. I mean, for TNT, to be as successful as it was, there's 30 TNTs that never came off the table. Yeah. Because once I worked them through my head for the 19th time that day, I scrapped it and said, no, this is going to cost me too much money again. But to build your brand, back to your point there, it's work on yourself away from everybody, right? Like nobody needs to see that. Mm-hmm. They need to see the results. Be nice and do things for the right reason. And that's really all it is. And the other thing, be consistent.
That's huge.
Like don't
huge.
Just for example, don't come out and tell me you're an Atlanta Braves fan because they're winning, and then next week let me catch you in a Giants hat. Like that's a disaster.
Stand for something.
Because at the end of the day, it may not seem like much. If you tell me that you just wear a Braves hat and then a Giants hat because you like the fashion side of it, I have no issues with it. But if I see that you're wearing a Braves hat one day and you're over here talking about how great they are and how much you love the Braves and you've loved the Braves your whole life, and the next week you're over here with the Giants hat on, I don't trust you. Yep. And people look at those details.
I want to give people an example of this, and this is so minimal, but it's so impactful because I truly believe this, and I'd heard this once, and I apologize to anybody listening, but I can't remember where I heard it, but people people do business with you because of why you're doing something, not what you do.
Absolutely.
Okay. People buy you for why you're doing something, not what you're specifically doing. And, what you just said right there is so impactful, because the way I saw you interact with fans, the way I saw you give back to the community, specifically when you were at Bell, when we first met, literally led to the point to where I have a Bell sticker on my car. Now, my car is kind of wrapped like a race car anyway, but I support Bell because of the work that you were doing, the way you're giving back to the community, the way that you're truly trying to help everybody win, was the reason why the helmets that I have, the motorcycle helmet I bought a year later, was a Bell motorcycle helmet, because of that. And that's building a brand. That's supporting a company, or and that directly applies if you're a real estate agent, you're a mortgage lender. Your brand is directly associated with the people that you surround yourself with.
A lot of people have bad days, right? Like, we've all had a day where we're like, we hung up that final phone call and it was like, I'm done. I'm going to my bar, right? I don't know about you guys. I have one in my backyard.
We're coming over.
You're always welcome. I mean, you couldn't make it to the studio today, but surely you can make it to the bar.
Oh, 100%.
But the reality is there's an event at the park that night. Does it really take away from your life to go spend an hour in your community?
Yeah.
Like, does it really take that much out of you? Because at the end of the day, if it's going to be dramatic and it's going to be a process that's going to hurt you, you need to change what you do. Right? Mike Hull, managing director for Chip Ganassi Racing, grew up in his house, right? His stepson Taylor and I have been best friends for 27 years. I learned a lot growing up in that house. Between Taylor and I were literally at their house or my house, and we lived 2 miles apart. Mike told me a long time ago, and granted, he's not the one that came up with it, but if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. If you can't say that, then you need to change what you do. And if you say that you can't change what you do because you can't afford it, that's not real. Like, honest to goodness, 90% of the decisions are things that you can control in your life are your decision to make.
That's it.
And going with that mindset, knowing that you do have control over what happens, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what your relatives have done, it doesn't matter, right? Like, your dad could come from a family of firefighters, and you can go ahead and you can be a doctor if you want to be. You know why? Because you can do anything that you want to do.
Yeah.
And knowing that and having confidence in that, it doesn't matter. Like, help your community do the right thing, and that's where it all stems back to.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to go support and build value for others, and then opportunities just immediately start to present themselves. So, but, well, Chris, this has been a ton of fun. I highly, highly appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to hop on the show with us and share some insights that I know have been hugely impactful for me over the last several years that we've had the chance to get to know one another. And we sincerely appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day today, man. Thank you.
Hey, man, thank you guys. It's awesome. I watch the show every time I can. So
right on.
A lot of good
Appreciate
airport
it, man.
time.
So where can anybody track you down? Let's say somebody wants to dive a little bit deeper into this topic, or they just want to pick your brain a little bit more on this. Maybe it's in the real estate industry, maybe it's in any other industry. I think the things that you've done directly correlate across all different industries. So how can somebody track you down, get a hold of you, man?
Yeah, so if you want to do it on social media, it's the Chris Wheeler. Most of my stuff is private, but honestly, if you just try and follow it, I usually accept it. I just don't like trolls. You can email me, wheeler@swindlespeedlab.com, and don't forget you can check out everything you need to about what we do at swindlespeedlab.com. We do a lot of consulting stuff, not just motorsports. I say motorsports consulting, but we do a lot of different things, right? We've got the merch, we've got the esports team, we've got the communication side of things with crisis communications and communication planning. We've got the digital content side of things. We've got the management side of things. So we have so much going on. I work with a lot of companies that aren't in racing.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes it's a little bit more enjoyable. Just have a fresh set of eyes.
Well, and again, that's why I kind of wanted to bring you on, because I think tapping into other industries, sometimes you can really pull from that, and you can take that and apply it to your industry, and sometimes that is a secret weapon. It allows you to go from, maybe I don't enjoy doing what I'm doing every single day the way I'm doing it, and pivot just enough to where excuse me, I almost slipped there, Jason, but
Almost.
but it allows you to pivot enough to where it's like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of fun again, because you're getting to do business with the people that you want to do business with, that you share common values and interests. So.
It is, and I got to tell you, before we're done though, the mortgage company and motor racing has been on an upward climb in unison as working together over the last probably 16 months. there has been a lot of stuff going on with a lot of your smaller regional mortgage companies stepping up and getting into the grassroots side of motorsports because they see the value. They see that these people that are going to the racetrack, they're working 40 to 60 hours a week. They're right in their median income kind of hopes, and these people are buying homes. Mm-hmm. And they're a lot of these people, they're either on the backside of their careers and they're looking for that settled down piece of property, or they're young and they're looking for that first time out of an apartment. And the mortgage companies are really stepped up with motorsports, and it's been really cool to watch them both kind of grow together over the last year and a half.
Well, and I want to
hint.
I know we were going to wrap the show up, but I just want to piggyback on that real quick because it's so true. And again, this isn't just motorsports. This is across many different platforms, that you could choose to market in. And I know Chris would be happy to talk to people about this, but truly, you can find low-cost ways to position yourself within an industry, and motorsports is a phenomenal one. I mean, it's a phenomenal industry that you can tap into, and I want to encourage people all around the country to do that because just like this, it's not only helping race car drivers with homes, it's helping the the team engineer, it's helping a fan, it's helping an entire industry of people that love the same thing.
So, and just real quick, tell me this: what are the odds that most, doesn't matter how big or small, mortgage companies or real estate companies have an extra $500 for a 3-month period in advertising?
I'd say most.
Cool. I'll challenge this. Anybody who watches this, if you want to try motorsports out, you send me an email. Literally, I won't make a dime on it. I will take your $500 and I will place it in the market somewhere with somebody in motorsports that'll get you your return.
That's awesome.
I'll do it just because I want to do it. And I want people to see how easy it is to take two completely different industries and combine them. And it doesn't take a lot of money.
That's awesome.
It takes paying attention to details and a little bit of trust, and we'll make it happen.
And they're going to have to get in line behind fairway on that one.
Well, we'll have to have that discussion at the bar. It's just after 9 a.m., and if you don't start early, you can't drink all day.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us on the Real Stories of Success podcast. If you took anything away from this, please hit that subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear from you. And again, reach out to Chris if you have any questions. I know Austin and I are always available here to support you any way we can. That's why we're doing this. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.